Hello, everyone. Happy to be here. I am working on this research with Judy Olson. We are currently conducting a national study on the use of telepresence robots in schools in the United States. And so this paper is born out of a sample set from that study. So the population of children with chronic illness who are homebound, it's estimated that we have about 4.5 million in the United States. We really have our data source, the Center for Medicaid Services, which estimates that 14 to 17% of children under the age of 18 experience a chronic illness that disrupts their academic attendance. So it can be anything from a chronic illness like cancer, heart disease, immunodeficiency disorders, et cetera, or temporary physical restrictions where they are out of school for a long period of time. So for this population, the current educational services that are offered are 4 to 5 hours of tutoring at home per week. They get books, packets of worksheets. We currently in the United States do not have any federal or state guidelines to drive the educational services afforded to this population. And so that's traditionally what has been afforded to them. So now we have these telepresence robots that students can use. And so you can see here we have several different models. We have some children over here on the left, so you can kind of gauge the size differences. So we have the Vigo robot, which is 18 pounds and costs about $5,000. They've just released a new educational model. We have the double robot next to that one, which has an adjustable height. So it's a remote controlled adjustable height, so you can have a sitting and a standing height, which is nice for high school students. It varies between 47 to 60 inches in height and weighs about 15 pounds. We have the Beam Pro, which you see here used in the conferences. It's about 63 inches high. Just in case you didn't know, if you're using one of these to attend the conference, you weigh 90 pounds. And they run about $14,000. So they are a little cost prohibitive for schools to use. And then we have the larger robot, which is mostly used in a telemedicine capacity. That's an RP Vita. And it's 66 inches tall, 176 pounds, and those run about $4,000 to $6,000 a month. And as you can see, that is not a feasible option for schools to use for students. So in our study, it's a qualitative study. We did semi-structured interviews of 14 teachers, 8 administrators, and 9 different schools for this paper. We interviewed 2 administrators and 2 teachers who explored the use of the robot, but they decided not to use it, even though the child was homebound for, I think, 6 months. If you look at this table, this is the teacher to administrator numbers, and you can see we have a lot more teachers that are involved in this practice than administrators. And when we layer in the number of schools, you can see there tends to be a 1 administrator, 1 school ratio. But and you have many more teachers involved in elementary school, and this is proving to be a pattern across our study. This is from when we wrote this paper. Except for high school, if you look at the 9th grader on the far right, you can see that they actually have more administrators who are involved with the robot use than teachers. And so in high school, you have school counselors, you have principals, you have many more staff who are involved in the deployment of this technology. So if you look at the decision process, this addressed our first research question, which was what line of decision making in the school system leads to successful adoption of a telepresence robot program. And what you have 3 key components to this process. You need parent support, you need board approval, and you need teacher support. Without all 3 of these, the telepresence deployment does not work in the school. All 3 of these groups have to work together. So to address research question 2, what issues arise because the classroom and the home or hospital are now accessible to the other via the telecommunication link? So this was our second research question, and we found that the bridge between home and school, which is missing on the top here, that's what it says. It says the bridge between home and school, was an important factor in deciding whether to use the telepresence robots in the classroom. Teachers felt very strongly that they needed a safe space. And that the home adults need to be trustworthy because they are visiting the classroom every day. So if telepresence works the way we expect it to, the child who is at home is present in the classroom, but the parents or whatever adults are home with the child are also present in the classroom or can be. And so teachers were very hesitant to allow this link, even though the robot does not record. Who enters the classroom via the telepresence robot, right? We have this bridge. So let's see. How to make adoption easier for teachers. That addressed our third research question, which was what would make the adoption smoother for teachers. They asked for adequate training on technology in the population. Some schools just give them the robot and expect them to suddenly know how to use a telepresence robot. They don't have guidelines, they don't have training. A system for handing out and receiving last-minute assignments. And this is an interesting one because it's something that consistently every teacher asks for, and every tech person says, oh, but they can take a picture, they can upload it, they can email it to the teacher can download it, she can print it, and then she can grade it and get it back to the student. And accessible does not equal usable. And so today we haven't come up with a usable option that allows for a last-minute assignment to reach the student and be transmitted back in real time. Something that is easy to print, easy to transmit, and just about every teacher we have interviewed has asked for this because lesson plans change. Every classroom dynamic is different, and the students grasping the material varies. So sometimes they need to give a last-minute assignment, and the child on the robot is left with nothing to do because there's no way to get the child that assignment. Also, teachers requested minimal class disruptions due to technology. Connectivity was a key issue. When the child just stops and then needs to be carried, classmates complained of having to carry their classmate. One school bought, I don't know if you've seen these dollies that you put under trash cans. They bought one of those, and when the robot would cut out, they would just put it on the dolly, the trash can dolly, and push it around because the children didn't want to carry it. And second graders actually aren't that good at carrying an 18-pound robot either. So we came up with some recommendations also for this paper. General would be there need to be some clear guidelines on student selection criteria. You know, for which students does this work best? We came up with some guidelines for parents that are in our paper. We also came up with some guidelines for administrators, for teachers. And in summary, we wrote this paper because we feel that a better understanding of teacher administrator perceptions and attitudes towards this use of technology, also the role of parents and families in this use of technology, and social context of schools are important to understand because they'll allow industry leaders to provide improved technologies and support for use of technology in this setting. So thank you.
Yvonne Rogers again. This is a general question about the term we're using, robots and telepresence. So in your title, you say, my student is a robot. And I wondered, I mean, this is clearly telepresence you're talking about, but the previous talk, it was about a robot that was being developed and the intentions that were ascribed to it. So I'm wondering whether the children do see these as robots and think about them differently than having, you know, more traditional telepresence, which is just on a computer screen.
We have a separate paper on that covers the classmates and the student experience, and the classmates very much see it as their classmate. After the initial introductory period, they refer to the robot by first name, they greet it, they hug it when their friend has been out sick for a while, and so I don't know that they see it as a robot. They really, after it's been in the classroom for a while, do see it as their classmate.
But do you think we should be calling them robots?
You know, the term robots and avatars, it goes back and forth, and it really depends on who you talk to. It's kind of like data. It's an argument that just goes round and round.
Okay, thank you very much.